Now, it's been exactly 3 months since Russia invaded Ukraine. President Biden has called the war a brutal, unprovoked global crisis that heightens the need to uphold the international order and territorial integrity. The governor of Ukraine's eastern Luhansk region says Russian forces continue to shell Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, two adjacent cities that they're trying to surround. The offensive is the main focus of Russia's attempts to capture the last part of the Luhansk region as part of its campaign to control the wider Donbas area. Ukraine's foreign minister has described the offensive in the Donbas as ruthless, saying it's the largest battle on European soil since the Second World War, and he repeated calls for allies to speed up weapons deliveries. Well, earlier I spoke with our correspondent Joe Inwood in Kiev. He said Russian forces are experiencing some successes.
The effort of the Russians now is on encircling these cities, Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. These are big industrial cities, one either side of the Severodonetsk River. And the way they're trying to do that is by pressuring Severodonetsk on 3 fronts, basically trying to surround the city, but then also cut off the supply lines, come from the south through a town called Popasna, and they are having some success doing that. They've recently, we understand, have burst through some defences at a place called Zolote. It's actually some front lines I visited a few months ago, incredibly well dug in. So the fact they've broken through there is a real success for the Russian forces. What they're going to try and do is encircle them, cut off the supply lines, and in the words of one prominent politician here, create a new Mariupol. Basically try and create a new siege in the east of this country around the towns of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk and try and starve out and pound with artillery the Ukrainian defenders that are there.
Joe, and just very briefly, we heard President Zelensky say yesterday that they were losing, admitting, quite an admission, that they were losing 50 to 100 men a day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because the Ukrainians generally haven't been giving a running commentary on the numbers of troops they've lost, and their Western allies haven't been giving totals either. We do have estimates of Russian numbers, but we haven't, as I said, for Ukrainians. And obviously with these numbers, it's always difficult to know because people want to release what they want to release for operational security reasons. But the fact that he admitted that, it was in a press conference with the Polish Prime Minister, but the fact he gave us that figure, which would, if you extrapolated, and we should say this is an extrapolation, would mean that anywhere between 1,500 to 3,000 troops are being lost a month. That is quite an interesting and significant number.
Joe Inwood reporting there from Kiev. Well, I've been speaking to Admiral Mike Mullen, former chairman of the US Joint Chiefs of Staff, to get his assessment of the situation in Ukraine. Have a listen.
The last report summed it up very well. Clearly, Putin was unable to achieve what he wanted to in attacking Kyiv. He's moved to the east. It seems he wants to solidify Donetsk and Luhansk. And we have two strong-willed people in Putin and also President Zelensky, who doesn't want to give an inch. I think we're in for a long, difficult slog in that part of the country. I think the comparison to Mariupol is probably a good one. Russia has better lines of communication, better support. They continue to pound away with the long-range weapons. And so I think we're going to see this for some time to come. And I think the losses and the damage are going to be very, very significant.
As you say, I mean, it does appear from all the intelligence that this is going to be a long slog, and we're only a couple of months into it. But if you were to reflect, could anything have been done to prevent this? Because we often hear the Chinese, for example, even the Indians saying this was the West and Europe poking the bear, almost provoking Putin by doing things like offering the Ukrainians NATO membership, when in Brussels and Kiev, it's been long known that that was never going to be the case.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it depends on how far back you go in terms of poking the bear. My own view is this has been something that's been in Putin's head for a long, long time, 10, 20 years. He is compelled right now and obsessed with Russian history going back hundreds of years and doing everything he possibly can to reestablish the empire, if you will. And in that regard, he'll clearly, I don't think will stop at anything. And history is pretty instructive with respect to Ukraine. Russia has been invaded over history, over 1,000 years, many times across Ukraine. So Ukraine is sort of the centerpiece, if you will. So in that regard, I'm not surprised. I think we could do the forensics, and we probably will. Could it have been avoided? I'm not really sure at this particular point in time. I do know how much disdain Putin holds for NATO, and I think offering or even giving an indication that Ukraine could be part of NATO certainly was part of it, but I'm not sure it could have been avoided.
Then what is the end game here?
I think that's a great question, Yelda, and I think it's an important one, that we think about that, and that there are individuals, even quietly, looking at how this possibly could end. I said here yesterday in a broadcast, all wars end. We need to figure out a way that this one ends, and does so in a way that doesn't generate, a large nuclear holocaust, quite frankly. And so, my sense is I'm not sure whether it's a ceasefire or a line of control or something out east. Again, Zelensky doesn't want to give up an inch, including Crimea, and someone's going to have to negotiate that at some point in time. And I don't think that's upon us or very close to us at this particular point in time, but at some point in time, we're going to need to do that.
Admiral Mullen, you've just mentioned a potential for, or to avoid the potential for, a nuclear holocaust. But is this something that keeps you up at night, the fear of the involvement of nuclear weapons in this conflict?
Well, I think with two things. One, what Putin has been pretty clear in terms of that threat. Secondly, he has the capability. So we can't be in denial that that's not a possibility. And we need to do all we possibly can to make sure he knows that, a response to anything like that would be devastating, so that it deters the use of that. That's just the reality, sadly, of where we are. I don't think it's very likely, honestly, at this point in time, but you just can't count it out.
That was Admiral Mike Mullen speaking to me there a little earlier.